In the movie The Shawshank Redemption, the hero is a wrongly convicted man who escapes from prison. In real life, though,
the hunt for 2 escaped prisoners.
Roger, 305.
2 guilty and very correctly convicted men are on the loose.
They're following more than 150 leads.
At first, these mugshots are pretty much the only image for hundreds of searchers and thousands of fearful residents in upstate New York to focus on. Until this.
This is my friend Ricky Matt right here. He's a freaking crazy lunatic maniac.
A chilling video surfaces, recorded in 1997. That's one of the 2 escapees, a younger, skinnier, but just as twisted Richard Matt, known then as Ricky.
South American blowgun. This is the South American blowgun.
Recorded on Super 8 film, an acquaintance demonstrating a blowgun by firing it at Matt.
Ricky with a smile.
Here we go. We're about to shoot the dart into Ricky's arm.
Just listen to what he says.
We're gonna dip these in AIDS blood, and we'll put a patent on them. We'll sell them as deadly weapons. What do you think?
The camera rolls as the dart goes right into Matt's arm.
Went in there, started to come out there.
He doesn't even flinch.
He's so good at conning people. God.
In one of life's countless contradictions, Matt displays talent as an artist growing up in suburban Buffalo. This is some of his later work, but apparently his true calling was violent crime.
This man has no heart, no soul to do this to another human being.
Just months after this tape was shot, retired police captain Gabriel DiBernardo would be investigating Matt for murder.
Ah, disgusting.
Matt was a guy who was in trouble with law enforcement from the time he was a teenager.
But despite his troubles, young Ricky seemed to have no trouble with the ladies.
Ricky had girls that were gorgeous.
He settled down with this woman, V. Harris. Today, she suffers from a debilitating illness, but back then, she suffered from Matt's violent outbursts.
Yeah, he had broken ribs, broken feet, broken toes. It was bad.
V forgives Matt, though, because in their roughly 18 months together, he gave her a son, Nicholas.
My mom wanted to make sure I knew who he was then, so if anyone had said something to me in the future, I wouldn't be caught off guard and not know what they're talking about.
Soon, Dad would give everybody something to talk about.
Richard Matt is the devil.
Lee Bates met Richard Matt at, where else? A strip club. Soon Ricky convinced him to join in a plot to rob William Rickerson, a local businessman who'd made the mistake of briefly giving Matt a job. Like many of Matt's criminal enterprises, what the plan lacked in sophistication, it made up for in brutality.
Mr. Rickerson looked up at Rick, and Rick turned around and punched him right in the face.
Bates says Matt tortured the 76-year-old man, sticking a knife sharpener into his ear at one point, then locked him in a car trunk and drove aimlessly for 27 hours.
At different points, he'd have me pull over. I'd have to get out of the car with him. He'd open the trunk, and he would beat Mr. Rickerson.
Each time they opened the trunk, it got worse.
He snapped his fingers all the way back and grabbing a hold of his head and snapping it. There was a pop.
You don't tell Richard Matt he can't have what he wants.
Matt dismembered the body and threw it in a river. After all that, the big score? Some rings, a couple of credit cards, and not even $100 in cash. Meantime, about 200 miles away, near Binghamton, New York, David Sweat had launched his own criminal career.
You know, he did larcenies here, burglaries.
Unlike his future partner, Sweat is more of a thinking man's thug.
It seemed like every crime that he was involved with involved making lists and maps and planning.
Sweat's transition from heist to homicide took place on July 4th, 2002.
This must have been a crime that just shook this community.
It did, because it was so brutal.
Sweat and his cousin steal some firearms and pull into this parking lot to move the stolen weapons from one car to another.
The 2 vehicles that he observed were parked over there, facing that direction.
That's when Deputy Kevin Tarsia happens to drive by.
When they saw him coming, they jumped out of the vehicles and hid. Well, they shoot him, and they just mow him right down.
Deputy Tarsia is hit 15 times, but the sheriff says he wasn't dead yet, so Sweat makes sure by driving over him.
I
have never forgotten Kevin, and I never will. Kevin was a great man. This is a SWAT team when Kev was on the SWAT team.
Christiane Ciccone-Storman was engaged to Kevin Tarsia. She's neither forgiven nor forgotten his killer.
He's a monster. There's some sort of chemical imbalance in his head. I wanted him to feel some pain.
Sweat pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty. He's sent to the Clinton Correctional Facility in 2003. A few years later, Mad Dog Richard Matt, who had finally been brought to justice himself, joins him. The two callous killers become buddies inside the prison in Dannemora, New York. Despite their various social pathologies, they are still capable of social charm, a charm prosecutors say they would leverage quite effectively with a woman who worked in that prison, a woman who would be the key to their escape, a woman named Joyce Mitchell.
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking, Joyce Mitchell, what are you thinking?